Hi, Marcel, the wood butcher. A second to put the camera back. I don't even have to say it anymore. You guys all know I'm a one-man show, and I'm moving the camera around as I get the friggin' wire out of the way, as I go along. Okay, this is part three of the seven-tiered candle holder. Today we're going to talk about uh, after we made our selection of wood, whether we want to use pallet wood at excuse me at 6 pieces per cube, or the redone pine at 3 pieces per cube. Well, like I said, I don't like to bore you with the cuts, but what I have done, I've gone over and I decided to use the miter saw, right, to take these squares and make them 2.5 by 2.5. They're about a half inch thick. So I put them on here, and it was determined it takes three. One, two, three to achieve our cube, which is, like I said, this isn't glued together, it's held together. And, and the next step is to sand them. Now, when we lay these out, uh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reposition the camera because since my bandsaw is right next to me, I'm going to try to put this camera on the bandsaw and let you see. Let's see, that looks good. Yeah. Let me see what I can do here. Let me try to raise it up just a RCH. Or actually, let me put the camera right here, right on the laptop. It's a good start. Then we'll do an overhead. Remember, I was saying in episode 2 or part 2, you have your choice. It doesn't matter to me which way you choose to do it. And that is, you can either use pallet wood, a stack of pallet wood. And yes, this project does require, stacks of stock to be put together. But if you use pallet wood, again, like I said, I want you to notice the grain orientation. And what we want to try to do is, I'm not happy with that piece. So let's see. Nope, it's going to have to be that side to follow grain. And the grain, following the grain, is what puts a woodworker away from the difference between a woodworker and a carpenter. Because if you choose, it doesn't matter if you choose the pine stack of 3 pieces or this pallet wood stack. Let's level that out and use them. Like I said, this is not glued together. It's not sanded yet. We're just going for the stack of wood. Okay, that's the 6 pieces that require pallet wood being used. We have here the if you remember from episode 2, I told you about a shadow box that a customer decided, well, no, I really don't want it, which is fine. You'll find that happens, and I don't care. I had 2 choices. I could either just continue on the project, finish it, and sell it, or disassemble it and have free lumber for a new project. Again, I want you to notice how I tried as best as possible to match the grains on the rough sides. That's the other side. and then the smooth side. Okay? Now, this takes 1, 2, 3 pieces. Now, if you don't happen to have, a shadow box that you previously built to take before, and if you choose to buy the lumber new, this is really inexpensive to lumber to purchase. It's 2-inch or 3 by 1, right? Pine strips, okay? And I want you to notice the beautiful, beautiful, what's called a bird's eye grain, right? On that piece and this piece. It's almost a sin because I had that as the outside, and it's on both sides, but on the outside of the original, uh, oh, oh, turn this over to match the grain, of the original uh, display case or shadow box I was making, right? Again, okay, yeah, we have the grain back in orientation. Now, what I choose to do a lot of times is, it is. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to lay this out on the table here, and I hope this works at this level. If it doesn't, I'll reposition the camera and give you an overhead shot. Okay? Since we're doing this at 7 tiers, which is basically to achieve this, you know what? I'm going to pick the camera up. To achieve, I'm going to move the camera up here. To achieve this. Yeah, there we go. Okay? Now, the arch is not cut yet, and we've made our decision of whether we're going to use 3 pieces of pine or 6 pieces of pallet wood to achieve the same size block. So let's assemble this. Let's start with the high point first. I'm going to try to adjust this the best I can. You know what? I think if I move the camera over here, top of the laptop, that actually looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to have, here's our first tier. I had to turn that piece for a reason that I'll show you real quick. Now, between the second and third board, we have a seam. That's where we're going to line up the center of the second tier and we're going to line up the same location on the seam between the center of the board for the other tier going on that side, and we're going to, same thing, between this board and that board and this board, center it. That's our 3 tiers on that side. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Second board, the seam. First board, line it up. You don't need a micrometer or a square. Just do it by eye. You'll find it'll work fine. And like I said, none of these pieces are sanded yet or anything. But I just wanted to show you the difference of selection. Again, seam, centered. And the final tier. Seam and centered, like I said, by eye. Okay? And it's starting to take shape. I'm going to manually hold the camera right now and show you exactly what we have. Okay, let me get the wire out of the way. This is what we have. Starting to look like what the drawing says it should be. This is without the arch yet, and like I said, nothing is glued, nothing is sanded. Now, like I said, the decision is on your part, right? If you want to use or maintain with the pieces of pine, 3 pieces, as opposed to the, I'm going to try to pick this up with one hand and not drop it, right? As opposed to using the 6 pieces of 6 pieces of pallet wood. Now, like I said, you don't worry about the gaps in there and stuff like that because none of this is clamped together. Once it's clamped together and sanded, it'll fit together as tight as a gnat's ass. Now, you don't have enough pallets to finish the whole thing. Well, as I was laying this out in preparation for this video, I thought of something that I thought was going to put a nice little touch on this. Okay, but before I show you that, I want you to notice how we have. You have to excuse the wire. I can't help that unless I hold it in my teeth and then I can't talk. Right? Is we have. I'll do it here. 1, 2, 3 pieces. We want to make this project really eye appealing. So what we're going to do is the centerpiece on all of these. This right. So here, here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. We're going to stain them a darker color than the top and bottom pieces. Kind of gives it that cutting board effect where it's appealing to the eye. It doesn't look boring or anything like that, right? Then, and that's done after it's sanded. The next step is quite a boring process actually, and laborious process, because what we're going to do is we have to take each one of these, put double back tape here and double back tape there on all of these, so that when we bring it to the sander, right, they sand evenly. Now, you'll notice I put these little orientation pencil mark lines on each stack in a different location on each stack so that they don't get confused. Well, that's what tells me what stacks belong together. Okay, as we're sanding them. Now, the line is going to disappear when we sand them. That's okay. That's okay because they're going to be double back taped together and they're not going to separate. Once we take the double back tape off, we're going to use a real technical tool to keep our blocks together and in the right orientation. And it's called a rubber band, right? That's after we remove the double back tape. It's, yes, it takes time to put the double back tape on because you're talking 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 pieces of double back tape. A little effort, but it's worth it. Then I came up with an idea because I already have the 6 pieces of pallet wood. These guys here, cut the width, cut the length, cut the height. The pinnacle of this project is going to be the top portion where the high candle holes. So I decided what I might want to do to break the monotony of just, the blocks is maybe throw in the stacked block of pallet wood on the top. Like I said, ignore the gaps because it's not clamped, it's not glued. These are just held together by hand, right? And put this guy back in its spot. Oh, wrong way. And that's, I'll try to get this overhead. And that's what we're looking at. This, I think, gives it a little bit of accent. Now, again, what we're going to do, since, and this is my opinion, you don't have to do it this way. That's why I say anything is possible with wood, with imagination. I prefer to use the dark, 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 light, 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 to kind of give it that cutting board effect. Now, when it comes to the palette piece up here, which I think I'm going to pursue because I like the way it looks. Only thing is, and I think I might keep the rough cut grain showing there to show that that's the point of focus. The top candle is, I'll go light, dark, dark, light, light, light. I think. I don't know. I don't know. That coloring is a matter of your preference. Okay? But you get the basic idea. You can either use that in place of that or that in place of this. It's entirely up to you. The drawing does not specify how you build your stack, but it is stacked wood. It is. Because I don't expect you to go out and buy, 2x12s or 4x4s and cut them up to make solid blocks, which I think would look hideous, right? But anyway, I'm going to move the camera back to where you can see my mug. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to do this. I think I have it right. Oh, here we go. Okay. So that's your choice. But this is the point where you have to be creative. Now, if you use the pine and choose to go with the shelf or the pine all the way, you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 3. You're talking 21 slices at 2.5 by 2.5, or as close as you can get. These are 2.5 by 2.5 squared on the surface. The height of the blocks, however, is about 1/8 of an inch shy of 2.5 inches, which is fine. Which is fine. It doesn't matter. As long as there's enough there, once we cut out our arc on there for the pieces of wood that we're going to cut out, which I advise you do with either a bandsaw or a handsaw if you don't have a bandsaw. That's going to be episode 4. Well, episode 4 is going to be the sanding. Episode 5 is going to be where we actually take these pieces and cut them. If you choose to use the mixture of pallet wood plus the pine stack, right? And I'm just going to skew these a little bit so you actually see. You're talking with a normal pallet wood, you're talking a stack of like 6 pieces. And it's going to be an RCH, about 1/8 of an inch, taller than the rest of your stack. I'll give you a for instance. Okay. There's your difference. Pallet wood, pine. 3 pieces or 6 pieces, 3 pieces. That little bit of difference is not going to make or break this project. But I leave that completely up to you. What would you decide to use? And you don't even have to use pine. If you have any other wood that's around The only thing you have to make sure of is that you have at least enough space to fit one of these guys in there, or you know, the little candles that are in the glass vessels that have, you know, the color. I think I have a couple around here, but I'm not going to waste the time to go find the goddamn thing, right? That's the only thing, which is why you want to make these at least 2.5 inches of surface space, at least 2.5, because I believe it's an inch and 7/8 Forstner bit that we're going to use to house the candles. Okay, but you can see how this works. There's a lot of cutting. My suggestion, again, is like I said, the special jig I made. Give me a second. I'm going to remind you of this because it's important. If you don't have a table saw, and all you have is a jigsaw or a hand saw or a handheld circular saw, that's fine too. Just mark it off every 2.5 inches, right, across the length of the board and cut them. And make sure that they're 2.5 by 2.5 square. You could probably get away with a 2-inch square, but what's going to happen there is you're going to have a real thin, you know, border once you bore the 1 7/8 inch hole in there to accommodate the candles. That's why I made this specifically for this project. You saw it in the previous video. Because when this goes in the table saw, I mark the fence or I mark the wood and put a stop block here at 2.5 inches or at this end, whatever end you choose to put the stop block on. Or if you use a miter saw, a compound miter saw, you know, the 2.5 inch line, put a stop block in there. And then you can repeatedly cut the cuts and cuts and cuts. Now, if you're going to make more than one of these at a time, because there are so many cuts, my recommendation is if you plan on making 2 or 3 of these or however, do all of your cuts when the stop block is in place to achieve the 2.5 inch pieces. Okay? You're going to find it a lot easier if you're batching these than it is to move the stop block, cut this piece, move the stop block, cut this piece, because this is really the only cutting that is required, right? The only other cutting you may have to do is if you choose to use pallet wood, you're going to find that your planks of pallet wood, I have one here, here it is, right? Your planks of pallet wood are going to measure normally almost 3.5. So you're going to have hack an inch, or yeah, like an inch off, right? Which is not a problem. That's table saw. Now, this, and you saw my video on taking pallets apart. This pallet was actually easy to get the long 40-inch pieces. The majority of them are a real pain in the butt to get the 40-inch pieces, which is why I usually end up with, let's see, here we go, stock 18-inch pieces, which are fine for this. Now, yes, this is raw cut. It's not, hasn't been sanded, hasn't been run through the planer or anything else yet, right? So, but it's free. It takes a little TLC to work on it. Now, this is the stock that came from the shadow box that the person decided they didn't want anymore, you know, and so that's what I took apart. Now, it actually measures from the store are 2.5 inches. Hope you can see that, right? And it's like a 3/4 inch. Yeah, it's 3/4 of an inch thick. So this is the choice you make if you want to use this stuff with minimal cutting or this stuff for more of a rustic look. It really depends. That choice is yours. But I just want you to notice, let's get the smoothest end. There we go. If you choose to use the pallet wood, the normal planks, or what they normally are, that's how much you're going to have to put on the table saw and cut off, rip it to that width. Okay, it's entirely up to you. It doesn't matter. It depends on your design. You need to use your personal imagination of how you want it to come out. It all depends. But that's all the wood that's required. Separate these a little bit. I'm gonna put you on the space station again for a second, just to show. That's the amount of wood. Depending on if you want to use the pallet wood as the top tier or completely out of pallet wood. Now, if you're going to use complete pallet wood, I want you to keep in mind you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stacks of 6 pieces. It's a lot of cutting, but if you have a stop block in place, it's not a problem. And this is why I was saying, if you plan on making a bunch of these, for like Christmas gifts or selling and this and that, if you decide on the amount of them you want to make. Calculate the amount of pieces you need, whether you use the pine or the pallet wood. Calculate the amount of pieces you need to make the quantity of 7-tier candle holders that you want to make, and cut all the 2.5-inch pieces at one time while the stop block is on your saw. Otherwise, you're causing yourself a hell of a lot more work. Because like I said, these are the only cuts involved. It's not like we have to reset this and reset that and this and that. And that is what it will look like when done. Okay? This is episode 3, and I'm calling it the cutting and placing the blocks. And also if you want to use the standard stock pine versus, oak pallet wood. That decision is completely yours. And the one thing that you do want to make sure you do, and I said this in the last video, but I want to reiterate it again, is to orient your wood grain to where it looks aesthetic. You can either match the pieces up. You got to match and play with the pieces because they're all going to be cut the same. To match the grain, whether you want to make it a continuous grain like this, or if you want to make it what they call a herringbone grain. This way. No, that's going to match it too well. Or if you want to make it what they call a herringbone grain. But with only 3 pieces, the herringbone doesn't work. If we had a 4th piece in here, the herringbone would work because it would look like herringbone would look like that with 4 pieces. With an odd number, I mean, it works, but it doesn't, So my advice is to take the grain, the end grain, orient them. Go. Orient them so that the grain matches as close as you can get. Now, if you really, really want to get detailed, since most of your stock was cut from one or two pieces of wood, if you play, basically, I call it Mr. Puzzle, and once you have all your squares, line them up, and you can probably get the grain like it does here. Excuse me, over here, where it matches, and it also matches there. That grain matching is important, important, important. It shows that a woodworker, not a carpenter, a woodworker worked on this and handmade this and took the detail to make sure the grain matches as close as possible. It's just one of those little techniques that sets your products away from somebody who just slapped them together. And if you sell them, point that out to the customers. I go to a lot of flea markets and a lot of little, local fundraising trade shows and stuff like that, and sell quite a bit. Now, I make birdhouses, I make business card holders, I make nameplates, I make candle holders, obviously. Uh, I make coffee tables, end tables, ice chests. Like I said, anything is possible with wood, with imagination. Anything. Some projects are a little bit more complicated than others, but hey, that's what makes it worth it. Excuse me, a Gatorade time. A little thirsty. It's hot and humid today. It's like 90 degrees in Middletown, New Jersey today, with a humidity index that I don't know how high it is, but it almost feels like you're in the shower. You're sweating so much. Okay? If you have any questions, leave the comments down below. I'd also like to remind you that I do have it's still under construction, but a web presence at www.thewoodbutcher.org, not .com, .org. I'll announce later what the org is for. The email address, temporarily right now, to contact me until I get the website up and running, the email address is going to change from this to some combination of the Wood Butcher. I just got to find what's available through what provider. Is mcrdpidi@gmail.com. Boy, can you tell I have a big budget for graphics? Okay. And as always, I do have a giveaway for the official Wood Butcher pens. Get that closer. All right, these are nice pens. Has the YouTube channel on it, and that's it. And the way you get one of these, let me know that you're subscribed and that you have enlisted somebody else to subscribe. Hey, I want more subscribers. And as I get more subscribers and start to get, a couple of sponsorships, and I don't care if it's sponsors that are monetary or for equipment, much like Vistaprint. Like Vistaprint provided me with the hats, the pens, and 1,000 of these business cards. I learned from my previous video that I actually blacked out the telephone number for YouTube broadcast because I started getting a couple of prank calls and stuff like that. And it's probably not a smart idea until I have a separate business line, for the wood butcher. Okay? So if you have any questions, any comments, if you want any pointers on the stage we're at with our 7-tier candle holder, please enter in the comments down below. And again, I would like to congratulate Christopher D. of Lemoore. Like a moron, I guess I pronounced it Lemoore, California, but it's Lemoore, Lamoore, which is probably Lemoore, not Lemoore. Okay, for being the first winner of one of these pens. I know the pens are not the highest premium that I can give away, but it's what I have to work with right now as I grow. Hats and t-shirts will be forthcoming. However, like I mentioned in the previous video, I kind of messed up through excitement. First of all, by choosing a white hat, and I completely forgot to add the stuff under here and along the back here. I just completely forgot. Thank God I didn't pay for them. They were given to me complimentary, so I really couldn't complain. But it was my fault because I got excited and didn't think it through. Okay, so for right now, this is Marcel, the Wood Butcher, saying, protect your eyes, protect your lungs, protect your ears, and don't forget about these guys. Because without any of those, you ain't making nothing. Make some sawdust because sawdust is orgasmic. And always remember, wood is nature's gift. Repurpose it whenever you can. The limit is your imagination. Take care and Semper Fi for now.